I was sitting in my father's office, the same mahogany desk where he used to help me with homework when I was 8. Now at 28, I was hearing the coldest words he had ever spoken to me. Suspended from family dinners, events, everything, until you apologized to your sister. His voice was steel. No room for discussion. No warmth. Just disappointment, etched into every syllable. Behind him, Madison stood with that smile. The one I had seen 1,000 times growing up. The smile that said she had won again. 30 years I had lived in her shadow, watching her collect trophies while I collected silence. But this time was different. This time I was not begging. I was not explaining myself. I stood up, looked my father straight in the eye, and 2 words left my mouth. All right. I turned and walked out, knowing everything was about to change forever. Before I tell you how that single moment changed everything, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments and hit that subscribe button, because what happened next is something you will not want to miss. Trust me, this story is about to get real. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, this one is for you. Let us get into it. My name is Zion, and I need to take you back to understand how we got here. My family used to be 4. Dad Richard, 58 years old now. Mom who passed when I was 12. Madison, my younger sister, 26. And me, the oldest. The one who was supposed to hold everything together after Mom died. That is what I tried to do anyway. After the funeral, Dad put all his hope into Madison. Maybe it was easier to focus on her because she reminded him less of the pain. Maybe he saw more of Mom in her. I do not know. What I do know is that Madison became his entire world. She was beautiful, brilliant, everything a father could want. Stanford MBA. A position at a major consulting firm in downtown San Francisco. Designer clothes. A LinkedIn profile that read like a success manual. Meanwhile, I went to a state school, got my engineering degree, and took a job at a small startup in San Jose. Nothing glamorous. Nothing Dad could brag about at his golf club. Just solid, honest work-building software that helped small businesses manage inventory. I was proud of it, but pride does not mean much when nobody sees you. When we were kids, things were different. Madison and I were close. Really close. After Mom died, I became her protector. I was 12, she was 10, and suddenly we were navigating a house full of grief with a father who had shut down emotionally. I made her breakfast before school, scrambled eggs slightly burned, because I was still learning. I helped her with her math homework at the kitchen table, even though I was barely staying ahead of her myself. On nights when she cried for Mom, I would sit on the edge of her bed and hold her hand until she fell asleep. Sometimes I sang the lullaby Mom used to sing, my voice cracking because I was trying not to cry too. There was this one night, a bad thunderstorm. Madison was terrified of thunder. She ran into my room at 2 a.m, shaking. I pulled back my blanket and let her climb in. We lay there in the dark, listening to the rain hammer the windows, and I wrapped my arms around her. "You are safe," I whispered. "I have got you." She looked up at me with those big eyes and said, "You are my hero, Zion." I believed we would always be a team. I believed nothing could break that bond. But high school changed things. Madison started winning awards. Debate team captain, valedictorian, student body president. Dad would light up at dinner talking about her accomplishments to anyone who would listen. Aunts, uncles, neighbors, the mailman. Everyone knew Madison was special. I was doing well too. I made varsity basketball. I had a 3.7 GPA. I got into a decent college. But Dad never mentioned me. It was like I existed in a separate dimension, one he could not quite see into. The first time I really felt abandoned was my high school graduation. It was a sunny June morning, the kind of California day where everything feels possible. I had my cap and gown on, standing in the parking lot of the school, watching families arrive, moms with cameras, dads with proud grins, siblings holding balloons. I kept checking my phone. Dad had promised he would be there. But an hour before the ceremony, he called. "Son, I cannot make it. Madison has a big presentation for her AP history class. It is worth 40% of her grade. I need to be there to support her. My throat closed up. I managed to say, "Okay, Dad. I understand." But I did not understand. Not really. I drove myself to graduation, sat alone in the student section, while everyone else had family cheering in the bleachers. When they called my name, and I walked across that stage, I looked out into the crowd searching for a familiar face. There was no one. After the ceremony, I sat in my car in the parking lot and called Dad again. I could hear Madison laughing in the background. "Dad, they loved my project," she was saying. Her voice was so happy, so bright. I hung up before Dad could hear me cry. I told myself it was fine. She needed him more. She was younger. She was going through a tough time too. I could handle being alone. 3 weeks before that ultimatum in Dad's office, I had been planning something important. I had been dating Sarah for 2 years. Sarah was 27, a third-grade teacher at an elementary school in Palo Alto. She was kind, patient, funny. She had this way of making me feel like I mattered, like my thoughts were worth hearing, like my presence was a gift, not an obligation. I loved her completely. I wanted Dad to see what I saw. I wanted him to be proud of me for once. So I arranged a family dinner at Dad's house. I told him I was bringing someone special. He sounded pleased on the phone. "Of course, son. I would love to meet her." That night I was so nervous my hands shook as I rang the doorbell. Sarah squeezed my hand. "It is going to be great," she whispered. Dad opened the door, gave me a brief hug, then turned his attention to Sarah. "You must be Sarah. Come in." We sat in the living room. Dad asked her a few polite questions. Where did she teach? How long had we been dating? But I could see his attention was elsewhere. He kept checking his watch. Then the door opened and Madison walked in. She was wearing a cream blazer heels that clicked on the hardwood floor, carrying herself like she owned the room. "Sorry I am late," she announced. "Work ran long." Dad jumped up like he had been hit with electricity. He hugged her, beaming. "Madison, how was your day?" She launched into a story about a client meeting, and suddenly the entire evening shifted. It was no longer about me and Sarah. It was about Madison's promotion. She had just been made senior consultant, the youngest in her firm's history. Dad was over the moon. He pulled out a bottle of wine he had been saving, made a toast to her success. The rest of the dinner was Madison's highlight reel. Dad asked her question after question. What was the Paris project? Who were the clients? What was her strategy? I tried a few times to steer the conversation back to Sarah to talk about our relationship, but it was like shouting into a windstorm. Nobody heard me. Under the table, Sarah reached for my hand and held it tight. She leaned in and whispered, "It is fine, babe." But I saw the disappointment in her eyes. I saw the way she smiled politely while being completely ignored. When we left that night, Sarah was quiet in the car. Finally, she said, "Your dad did not ask me a single question about myself. I did not know what to say." She was right. I had brought the woman I loved to meet my father, and he had not even bothered to learn who she was. 2 weeks later, I proposed to Sarah. We were at the beach in Half Moon Bay watching the sunset. I got down on one knee in the sand and asked her to marry me. She said yes, tears streaming down her face. We were so happy. I called Dad the next day and asked if I could come by. I wanted to share the news in person. When I arrived, Madison was already there. Dad had invited her without telling me. I should have known. I stood in the living room and announced Sarah and I are getting married. I waited for the joy, the congratulations, the hug. Instead, Dad's face barely moved. "Oh, that is nice, son. Nice." That was it. Madison stood up, her expression sharp. "Wait, you are getting married," she said, like I had just announced I was joining a cult. Then she started. "She is just a teacher. You know teachers do not make much right. How are you going to support a family?" I felt my chest tighten. I kept my voice steady. "Madison, that is disrespectful. Sarah is educated, kind, and I love her." But she did not stop. She turned to Dad. "Do not. You think Zion should focus on his career first? His startup is not even profitable." I looked at Dad, waiting for him to defend me. waiting for him to tell Madison to back off. But he just sat there looking at her with that same adoring expression he always had. Finally, he spoke. Madison has a point. Marriage is a big responsibility. Maybe you should wait. I felt like I had been stabbed in the back. Dad, I am 28 years old. I have a stable job savings and a woman I love. Why can you not just be happy for me? My voice was rising, and I hated that I could not control it. Dad frowned. Do not raise your voice at me. I am trying to give you advice. Madison jumped in her tone, dripping with false concern. See, he always gets defensive when someone tells him the truth. I looked at her and saw it clearly for the first time. The smile, the satisfaction. She did not want me to be happy. She wanted to be the only star in Dad's sky, and my happiness dimmed her light. 1 week later, we all gathered at Dad's house for Sunday dinner. It was supposed to be a family tradition. Dad, Madison, me, and now Sarah. I wanted to give it another chance. Sarah baked a lemon pound cake from scratch, her grandmother's recipe. We walked in with the cake, hoping this time would be different. Madison was already there, wearing a navy designer suit I recognized from a magazine ad. She looked like she had just stepped out of a boardroom. Dad greeted us briefly, then immediately asked Madison about her upcoming trip to Paris. She launched into a detailed description of the luxury hotel, the Michelin star restaurants, the client meetings. Dad listened, like she was narrating the cure for cancer. I tried to share something about my work. We had just closed a deal with a retail chain, a big win for the startup. Dad, I wanted to tell you about this project we have been working on. He nodded absently. That is good, son. Then he turned back to Madison. So, Madison, tell me more about the Paris client. I felt invisible. Sarah put her hand on my knee under the table, a small gesture of support. But even she looked uncomfortable. Halfway through dinner, Sarah's phone rang. She excused herself and stepped outside. It was her mom. Sarah's mother had been dealing with health issues, and Sarah always took her calls. The moment Sarah left the room, Madison leaned forward. Dad, I need to tell you something about Sarah. My stomach dropped. What about her? I asked, already on edge. Madison's expression was serious, almost grave. I did some digging. Sarah has credit card debt, about $15,000. The room went cold. How do you know that? I demanded. Did you investigate her? Madison shrugged, casual, as if we were discussing the weather. I have connections. I just wanted to make sure she is not after your money. I shot to my feet. My money. I am not rich, and her debt is from student loans she helped pay for her younger brother's college. That is none of your business. Madison's voice stayed calm, which made it worse. I am trying to protect you, Zion. This girl has red flags. Dad, instead of shutting this down, nodded slowly. Madison has a point. Financial responsibility matters in marriage. I could not believe what I was hearing. My father, the man who raised me, was siding with my sister, who had just violated Sarah's privacy. Dad, you have never once asked about Sarah's character, her kindness, how she treats me. All you care about is money and status. My voice was shaking with rage. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Fake tears. I had seen this performance before. Why are you attacking me? She said, her voice breaking. I am just trying to help. Dad stood up, his face hard. Zion, apologized to your sister. Now. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Surely this was a joke. What? She invaded Sarah's privacy and you want me to apologize? Dad's voice went cold. Madison did this because she cares. You are being ungrateful and disrespectful. At that moment, Sarah walked back in. She looked at the three of us, the tension thick enough to cut. Madison turned to her, smile sweet as poison. Sarah, dear, do not worry. We are just having a family discussion. Sarah looked at me, and I could see she understood. She had walked into a war zone. I grabbed Sarah's hand. We are leaving. Dad held up his hand like a traffic cop. If you walk out that door without apologizing to Madison, you are suspended from this family. No dinners, no holidays, nothing, until you make this right. Madison stood behind him, her eyes gleaming with victory. I looked at my father, the man I had spent my whole life trying to impress. Then I looked at Madison, the sister I had once protected from thunderstorms. 30 years of being second place, 30 years of being invisible, 30 years of begging for crumbs of affection. It all crystallized in that moment. I smiled, and it was not a happy smile. "All right," Dad blinked. "All right," I met his eyes. "All right, I accept your terms. Consider me suspended." I turned to Madison. "And congratulations. You finally won." I took Sarah's hand and walked toward the door. Behind me, Dad's voice rose. "Zion, get back here." But I did not stop. I did not turn around. I walked out of that house and into the cool night air, and for the first time in years I could breathe. In the car, Sarah was quiet. "Finally," she asked, "are you okay?" I looked at her. This woman who loved me for who I was, not for what I could prove or achieve. "I am free," I said. "For the first time in years, I am free." When we got home, I took out my phone and blocked Dad's number. Then I blocked Madison. Sarah watched me worried. "Are you sure?" she asked. I nodded. "I am done begging for scraps." We sat on the couch, and I told her everything. How I had spent my whole life trying to be enough. How I had sacrificed my own needs to make Dad proud. How I had watched Madison become the sun while I orbited in the shadows. Sarah held me while I cried. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. We decided to focus on our own life. We started planning a small wedding. Just our close friends. No family drama, no performances, just love. The first week my phone rang constantly from unknown numbers. I knew it was Dad trying to reach me. I did not answer. Sarah asked, "Maybe you should talk to him." I shook my head. He made his choice. Now I am making mine. It was hard at first. I had been conditioned my whole life to seek Dad's approval. Breaking that habit felt like withdrawing from a drug. But every day got a little easier. 2 months passed. Sarah and I got married at City Hall on a Tuesday afternoon. 20 of our closest friends came. Sarah wore a simple white dress. I wore a navy suit. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to always see each other, to always choose each other. There was no Dad in the audience, no Madison. And you know what? I did not feel sad. I felt light. After the ceremony, we went to a small Italian restaurant and celebrated with people who actually loved us. Sarah's mom, Janet, stood up and gave a toast. "Welcome to our family, son. We are so happy Sarah found you." It was the first time in years someone had called me son with affection. I cried again. Work started going well. The startup I worked for secured Series A funding $5 million from a venture capital firm. My role expanded. I was promoted to lead engineer, overseeing a team of 6 developers. My salary doubled. Sarah and I saved up and bought a small 2-bedroom condo in Mountain View. It was ours. No memories of Dad, no ghosts of Madison, just us building something new. Sarah won Teacher of the Year at her school. I went to the awards ceremony and cheered louder than anyone. Her students made cards for her, and one of them drew a picture of Sarah and me holding hands with the caption, "Best teacher and her hero husband." Sarah showed it to me, smiling. "Looks like I am not the only one who thinks you are a hero." Life was peaceful. We fell into routines. Saturday morning farmers market. Sunday brunch with Sarah's family. Evenings on the couch watching old movies. I started sleeping better. The knot in my chest that had been there for years began to loosen. I did not realize how much energy I had been spending trying to earn love that was never going to come. Now I was surrounded by people who gave it freely. It felt like I had been holding my breath for 30 years, and finally exhaled. 4 months after I walked out of Dad's house, our doorbell rang on a Tuesday evening. I was not expecting anyone. I opened the door and froze. Dad stood there, and he looked like he had aged a decade. His hair was grayer. His face was drawn. His eyes were red and puffy. "Zion," he said, his voice rough, "I need to talk to you." I did not invite him in. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. What do you want? He swallowed hard. It is about Madison. He told me everything. Madison had been fired from her consulting firm. The reason was embezzlement. She had been using company funds to pay for her lifestyle, the designer clothes, the expensive trips, the luxury apartment, all of it funded by money that was not hers. She had been caught when an audit revealed discrepancies in client expense accounts. The firm pressed charges. Madison was facing potential jail time and owed over $100,000 in restitution. Dad had sold his house to pay for her legal defense and cover part of the debt. Now he and Madison were living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment across town. Dad had taken a part-time consulting job to make ends meet. I know I failed you, son, he said, his voice breaking. I was blind. Madison. She is not who I thought she was. All these years I put her on a pedestal and I ignored you. I see that now. He wiped his eyes. I need help. Can you lend me some money just to get through this month? I stood there feeling a rush of emotions. Anger, sadness, vindication, pity, but above all, clarity. Did Madison ask you to come here? I asked. Dad hesitated. She suggested it. She said you are doing well. And there it was. Even now, even after everything, Madison was manipulating him, using him to get to me. I took a deep breath. Dad, I cannot help you. He looked shocked. But I am your father. Family helps family. I almost laughed. Family? Where was family when I needed you? Where was family when you chose Madison over me, every single time? Where was family? At my high school graduation. At my engagement. At my wedding. Dad's face crumpled. I made mistakes, but I am still your father. I nodded slowly. You are. And you suspended me from the family, remember? You made that choice. I am just honoring it. He reached out like he was going to grab my arm, then stopped. Please, Zion. I am sorry. I will do anything. I looked at this man and I realized I did not hate him. I just did not owe him anything anymore. The time for apologies was 4 months ago, I said quietly. Now I am building my own life, with people who actually value me. Dad turned to leave, his shoulders shaking. I watched him walk to his car, and I felt something I did not expect. Peace. Sarah came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. Are you okay? She asked. I closed the door. Yeah, I really am. The week after Dad's visit, Sarah and I started going to couples therapy, not because we were having problems, but because I needed help processing everything. Our therapist, Dr. Lynn, was a kind woman in her 50s who specialized in family trauma. She helped me understand that I was allowed to grieve. You are allowed to grieve the father you wished you had, she said, while accepting the father you actually have. That permission to feel sad without guilt was liberating. I started keeping a journal, writing down my thoughts every night before bed. The first entries were angry, pages of rage about missed birthdays, ignored accomplishments, the years of feeling invisible. But slowly the anger transformed into something else. Acceptance. Dad had his own limitations, his own wounds. Maybe losing Mom broke something in him that he never fixed. Maybe he did not know how to love 2 children equally. Maybe he was scared of me because I reminded him too much of his own failures. None of that was my fault. None of that was something I could have fixed by being better, trying harder, achieving more. The problem was never me. I found a men's support group for people dealing with family estrangement. We met every Thursday night in a church basement. There were 8 of us, all different ages and backgrounds, but we shared the same wound. The wound of not being chosen by the people who were supposed to choose us first. Hearing their stories helped me feel less alone. One guy, Marcus, had not spoken to his parents in 5 years because they refused to accept his husband. Another, James, had been disowned for not going into the family business. We did not offer each other solutions. We just offered witness. Sometimes that was enough. I also started volunteering at the local Boys and Girls Club, mentoring kids who had lost parents. Every Saturday morning I would show up and spend 2 hours with a group of 10 to 12-year-olds. We would play basketball, do homework, talk about life. The kids called me Mr. Z. They would run up to me when I arrived, excited to show me their drawings or tell me about their week. One boy, Kevin, who had lost his dad in a car accident, latched onto me. He reminded me of myself at that age, trying so hard to be strong, trying not to cry. One day he asked me, Mr. Z, does it ever stop hurting? I knelt down to his level. It does, I told him. Not all at once. But little by little the hurt becomes softer. And one day you will realize you are okay. 3 months after Dad's visit, Sarah came home from a doctor's appointment with news. She was pregnant. I stared at the ultrasound photo, this tiny bean-shaped blob on the black and white printout, and I started crying. Sarah looked worried. Are you upset? I shook my head, laughing through tears. I am going to be a dad, and I am going to be the father I never had. Sarah cupped my face in her hands. You already are that person, Zion. Look at how you love me, how you treat my family, how you mentor those kids. You already know how to be a great father. 6 months after I walked out of Dad's house, I received an email. It was from Madison, using a new email address since I had blocked her old one. The subject line said, "Please read." I almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The email was long, several paragraphs. She started with an apology, a real one, not the performative kind she used to give when Dad forced her. She said she had been jealous of me our whole lives, that when Mom died she felt like she had to be perfect to keep Dad from falling apart, that the more she tried to be perfect, the more she felt like a fraud, that she had built her entire identity on being better than me, and when that was not enough, she resorted to sabotage. She admitted the credit card investigation was wrong. She admitted trying to turn Dad against Sarah. She admitted she had been living beyond her means for years, desperate to maintain an image that was not real. She said she was in therapy now, working through her issues. She said she understood if I never wanted to see her again, but she wanted me to know she was sorry. She ended the email with, "You deserved better." From Dad. From me. I am sorry I could not be the sister you needed. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and did not respond right away. I needed time to think. A week later I wrote back. It was short. I appreciate your honesty. I am not ready to rebuild yet, but I wish you well in your healing journey. Maybe one day. I did not close the door completely, but I did not open it wide either. It was a boundary, a healthy one. Madison wrote back a simple, "Thank you. We have not spoken since. Maybe we will someday. Maybe we will not. I am okay with either outcome." Sarah's pregnancy progressed. We spent weekends painting the nursery a soft yellow, gender neutral, because we wanted to be surprised. I assembled the crib following the instructions carefully, making sure every screw was tight. Sarah would sit in the rocking chair reading baby books out loud, and I would listen, imagining the life we were about to start. One Saturday afternoon I was putting together a changing table when Sarah walked in. "What you thinking about?" she asked, sitting on the floor next to me. I set down the screwdriver. I'm thinking about how that one moment saying all right and walking away saved my life. I leaned back against the wall. I spent 30 years trying to earn love from people who could not see me. I thought if I was patient enough, good enough, understanding enough, they would finally choose me. But love is not supposed to be earned. It is supposed to be given freely. Walking away was not giving up. It was choosing myself for the first time. I do not hate my dad or Madison anymore. I just released them. They are on their own journey, and I am on mine. Sarah reached for my hand. "Do you regret it? Walking away?" I shook my head without hesitation, not for a second, because walking away led me here, to you, to our baby, to a life where I am not constantly trying to prove my worth. Sarah smiled, tears in her eyes. "You never had to prove anything, baby. You were always enough." I kissed her forehead. I know that now. We sat there in the nursery, surrounded by boxes of baby clothes and stuffed animals, and I felt something I had never felt growing up. Complete. Whole. Seen. I put my hand on Sarah's belly, feeling our baby kick. Strong little kicks like the kid was already ready to take on the world. I laughed. This kid is going to be a fighter. Sarah grinned, just like their dad. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who do not value you, even if they are family, especially if they are family, because staying in a place where you are not loved is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment. I chose me. And in doing that, I found everything I had been searching for. I looked out the window at the sunset, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. Dad gave me an ultimatum that day, I said quietly. He thought he was punishing me. Turns out he set me free. Have you ever had to walk away from family to save yourself? Drop your story in the comments. I would love to hear how you found your own freedom. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe because there are more stories like this coming. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you are enough exactly as you are. You do not need anyone's permission to live the life you deserve. Take care of yourself out there. You are worth it.